Hey there, in this video we're going to run through training on containers. So first we're going to head over to inventory and we will filter by the containers tab. So here is how you can view all of your container inventory. So these are all my containers. Each one is just one container, and if I click on it I can access this detail screen just like any other inventory item. And so what is a container? A container is an inventory item that contains other inventory items. So if I scroll down here to the devices section, we can see all of the devices that are contained within it. Containers are not sold, but they can be moved around. And if they are transferred, the inventory inside gets transferred with them. So the most common corollary for this is trays, surgical sets, non-sterile containers that are moving around in the field to help you move your inventory or to bring the inventory into an OR. So that's what our containers are. In this video, we're going to talk through how to create a container, how to stock a container, moving containers around, and how to manage what's inside. So first, we will create our container. We'll click New Inventory. We'll click Add Container. Creating containers is best done manually, in my opinion. However, they can be created as a byproduct of an import. But creating the container manually means that creating the container manually means that all of the detail is going to be entered correctly, and there's no chance of that container getting screwed up by, a messed up import. So first select the inventory type of container, then select the custody you're going to create it in, most commonly the organization. Select the manufacturer of the inventory, and then the product line will come from the catalog if you have this box checked. But we need to create a unique catalog number for our container. So it needs to be one that's not currently in use. So I'm going to click Add New. We'll enter a new catalog number for it and assign a product line. And you can set up a container canonical name. This helps you keep track of what type of tray this is. So, if your company has a spine product and there's 5 sets in the spine product, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're always the same thing, then maybe you would call this spine tray 1. Then everyone would know, like other spine tray 1s, what that refers to. So we can create a canonical name here. Click Next, and then on this screen you can add a description, whatever information you need to add there, specifications, cost, weight, warehouse location if you want to track where this is actually held in your warehouse, or the lead time for producing more, you can do that. The container is going to be unique, so setting a par level is not really valuable in this situation, and then you can also apply tags if needed. So we'll go ahead and click Create. That'll create the catalog item for our container, so we can select it and then click Next. If you already have a bill of materials created that you would like to assign, you can do that here, or even create a new one. We're going to do that a little bit later in this training, so I'll just leave this blank for now. We are going to cover that a little bit later in this training, so I'll just select one of the existing ones. If you want to apply tags or notes, feel free, and then click Next. And so here you can apply some consignment statuses, hold statuses, inventory type. A lot of these don't apply as much to a container, or they don't apply until the container is actually moving around, like the due back date or the consignment status. So I'm going to leave these alone for now. And then the container is not typically billable, so we'll keep that off. And then containers aren't getting used in cases, so we don't even need to worry about it being reusable. So we'll click Next. If we have a UDI or a barcode for the container, you can add those here and then click Create. Entering a UDI or a barcode for your container ensures that the container's label will be scannable. So that's a really useful tool if you manage barcode labels for your containers. So once you've created your container, you have access to its detail screen. This is pretty much like another inventory detail screen. I won't spend a ton of time going through it, but I will point out the bill of materials section. But we should talk about what bills of materials are, actually. So I should have talked about that earlier. Bill of materials are basically a template for your container. So you're saying what is required in this type of container that has this bill of materials assigned. So you would create one bill of materials template, and it could be applied to many trays in order to keep them all consistent as they go in and out of the field, as inventory is sold and they need to be replenished. So you can see one that we've built here already. There's a lot going on, so let's dive in. You have each item included in the bill of materials listed here, along with its required quantity. And then you can see how many are actually in the container, and we have 0 because we just created this container. If we want to fix shortages, that allows us to select specific inventory to add to fill this container. But we don't have the inventory we need, so we can't. If I were to check this one, here we go. We have some inventory we can select, which allows us to fill that shortage. So I just added 2 devices, and you can see that our shortage changed to an excess. So let's see what happens when we fix that excess. We will remove 1 device of the 2. That added it back into my stock, and now you can see the BOM is happy. This one is complete. So we can go through and do that for all of the items here. That allows you to pick particular lot numbers, or you can click the auto refill option. So if you click auto refill, the system will, based on first in or first out, or last in, first out, go and find inventory for you to stock the tray. It'll do this automatically, and then you'll need to go find the inventory that it picked. So I just clicked it, and you can see 1 item was not able to be fulfilled, so we're SOL there. But for these 2 devices, we could click the export pick list, and then we'd be able to go see these items in the warehouse and actually put them in our physical container to make sure that the system matches reality. So that's how you can use the auto refill or the individual fixed shortages buttons to stock the tray. So using a BOM to stock a tray is kind of a chicken or an egg situation. So you can use the individual fix buttons to select the items that you want to go into the tray and then go pick the inventory in the warehouse, or you can pick the inventory in the warehouse and then make the updates in the system later. So either way you want to do it. And then if for some reason you have a shortage you can't fill, like this one, you can request replenishment. So that allows the user to request a replenishment for the inventory that's missing in their tray. Now we can expand the devices section and see the devices we just added using the BOM. And this is a useful time to talk about how to add things manually and remove things manually. So, we just used the BOM to stock the tray, which is the probably easiest way to do it, but you could just add things manually using a search and select method. So you go through and search for your inventory. You can search by catalog or lot number. You can scan barcodes, whatever you need. Select the inventory and add it that way. You'll notice that it's letting us know this inventory is not in the BOM, so it's considered kind of excess. If we scroll up to the BOM section, it'll show us now we have 1 catalog not in the container. So that's how you can keep track of that. And if you want to remove that inventory or any inventory, just check these boxes and click release. If you ever need a list of what's in a tray, you can really easily export a device list here in a PDF or a CSV, and you can decide whether to include the images that are stored on this container or not. So I'll just do one without images since we don't have any. Here's what that container list can look like. We cover transferring inventory in another video, so I won't actually execute a transfer here, but it is important to remember that when you transfer a container, all of the inventory inside it will be transferred as well. And then if this container, for instance, is on a pending transfer, none of the inventory inside will be able to be used on a case until it's accepted. So important things to remember there. But let's talk through how to create a bill of materials and use it to manage your trays. So here in the bill of materials section, you can see all the existing BOMs we have. You can click duplicate if you ever want to use one as the basis for another bill of materials. This is really useful if you are managing custom trays. So like, let's say we built our standard tray. Here it is, it has 26 devices, but a particular surgeon wants a non-standard configuration. So we could change this to Dr. Sweeney's bill of materials, and then we can select the extra inventory that that doctor needs, create it, and then now we have a bill of materials that's slightly different from the other that we could assign to a tray if it's going to be sent to Dr. Sweeney. So this allows you to manage, slight variations in your tray configurations really easily, because then you just use the bill of materials to stock the tray to par. So very useful tools here. So if we click on new BOM, we can create one from scratch. I just select default. Pack inventory is something else we'll talk about in another video. Enter a name for the BOM. And then just start selecting the items that belong in the tray. So search for the catalog numbers, select them. You're basically building a list of all of the items that are going to be in the tray. I think it's easiest to just go through and select all the items first, and then go through each item and say how many are required to be in the tray. You'll notice that we allow you to enter min and max quantities as well. However, those are really just guidelines for users to use as they're stocking trays. So, this could go up to 7. The system only cares about the 5. The system will never read the 7 or tell you, that you're over or under based on the 7. So really what matters is that required quantity. So make those modifications and click create. And there you have it. Your bill of materials is already created. And if you want to assign it to containers, you can search for containers to assign right here. You assign that to that tray, and then you can just jump to the tray right here. Or if you wanted to go to your inventory, select a container specifically, and apply a BOM. Here's the BOM field right at the top. We can remove that bill of materials and add a new one. So you can start to get a feel for how easy it is to stock your trays or change your tray configurations, because changing the bill of materials changes the template. And then you just use these buttons to, make those modifications. Of course, you need to actually make the changes physically in reality, which takes some time, but systematically, I think this makes things much easier. So something else to think about with containers is maintenance. So containers get steam sterilized repeatedly. They also contain a lot of instrumentation quite often, and that instrumentation gets used repeatedly and, needs to be tracked, needs maintenance, needs to be inspected. So how do you keep track of that? Let's set this up for a brand new container. We'll go to our new tray, and I'll scroll down to the inspection history section. This allows us to set up an inspection cadence for our inventory. So if I click requires inspection and select the first date, and then the frequency, so maybe every 90 days this tray needs to be inspected, I'll click save. And now I can mark its first inspection. There it is. It created this history of the inspection, and I can create comments here if I want to record anything that's wrong with the tray, or record that it's fine. You probably want to include better comments than that, but this will notify you as the next inspection date is approaching, and you can keep track of your tray's inspections this way. This will be stored in perpetuity here for audit purposes, and it's a quite useful feature to keep track of. Now, what about when trays are coming and going on like a daily or weekly basis? The check-in history can also be really useful. So you would do this when a tray returns from the field. you would click Begin Check-in and do an actual inspection on the spot. So cleanliness check. Is it ready to go? We can say pass, fail. Visual technical inspection, same thing, pass, fail. All of these are really up to your process to determine what they mean. Obviously, reconciled to BOM is fairly straightforward, but you determine within your own operational process, what each of these mean, what weight they carry, how to use them. And then if you set a red or yellow flag, this tray will not be considered ready to go. So it needs a green flag in order to be ready to go out to the field again. So we can see that the check-in is started, and even though it has a green flag, it's not ready until we click complete. And then it creates that record there of when this tray was checked in. You start building a great audit history of how this tray is being cared for, as well as how often it moves and how often it's being cleaned. So this is just great from an audit perspective. So we talked about how to create a tray, how to stock a tray, how to assign BOMs, how to inspect and check in a tray. How do you use inventory from a tray? So let's find our way over to an open event, and we'll click the Mark Use Inventory button. And so here we are in the inventory selection screen for a case. So let's say I want to pull inventory from a particular tray. What I can do is search inside a specific container. So in this dropdown, it'll show me the containers that are available to the user assigned to this case. And that container has nothing inside it, so let's try again. And so I searched for this particular container. It's showing me all of the inventory in this container. And then I can search for inventory inside it. So now I'm searching for devices within this actual tray. So it becomes really easy to select inventory by filtering it down by the tray you're using. And then after you've added this device to the case, this container will become associated with that event as well. All right, so that concludes our training on containers. Please tune in to our next training video to learn more.